Today I am making a video, or would like to make a video, a more informative video actually. Oh, hold up. Yeah, I want to make a more informative video since from what I've seen on YouTube there hasn't been a hell of a lot of you know, more of an update with new information on how to ride more modern bikes, as well as a recap as how to ride older bikes, because you know, the older bikes being all analog, they're pretty straightforward, but the newer bikes as well that have a whole bunch of tech and safety and whatnot. So I'm just gonna try and find a quiet spot and hopefully, yeah, cover all that stuff. Alrighty, I think I found a nice little place. Park the bike over there. But yeah, just wanted to talk about how to get into motorcycle riding, or how to ride, and the things you need to know before pursuing it, essentially, as a hobby or a mode of transportation, or well, whatever your reasons are. So your first thing that you'll need to know is gear. Now there's different kinds of gear, well, lots of different kinds of gear. To simplify things, there's I would say 2 to 3 main types. You have your leather jackets, you have your perforated jackets, and also sometimes you have your winter kind of wet jackets, which don't allow any airflow and is completely water resistant and whatnot. Now, things like this is perforated and whatnot, so that means it would be pretty bad for, I would say, riding in the rain if you choose to do that. I mean, it's quite sketchy to ride in the rain. I've done it for a couple of years, and yeah, you're always on edge. You always got to be alert and whatnot, especially with wet roads and things like that. But yeah, back to the jackets. So you have perforated ones like this, which is really good for summer because all this little perforation, pretty much Kevlar vents and whatnot to allow airflow, so you don't end up cooking in the sun, or better yet, cooking on your bike. Because some bikes, not all, have tendencies to run hotter than others. Not mentioning any names, but yeah, that does. Well, Ducati in general does. Now, I've had a couple of bikes. I've had Yamaha's R6s. I've had a Hyosung. I've had a Honda CBR 500. And those bikes didn't ever really have any issues with heating, essentially. The 600 used to get hot. I would say this R6 did get hot when it was quite sunny like it is today. Between 31 and 33 degrees. It'll be mildly inconvenient and discomforting to ride, but as long as you're moving, you got the airflow, you got a nice breeze that's going on right now, and yeah, it helps. But yeah, perforated jackets, summer definitely. Winter, I would probably go more for a leather jacket, because I mean, this did come with a inner lining, essentially, that can sit in there. That is essentially your winter lining, which is just padded, and well, it doesn't allow air to flow as cleanly as it would normally, especially with the vents, and you know, block out the wind, try to keep you warm, that kind of stuff. Second thing that is in the gear category is gloves. Now, gloves and jackets are in the same kind of thing, where you can get leather gloves, you can get perforated Kevlar gloves, you can get fingerless gloves, you can get a whole bunch of different gloves. Highly recommend gloves and a jacket. I'm an advocate for ride for a crash, essentially. Be prepared for a crash. If you're not, well, you'll be unlucky, essentially. And speaking from experience, I got T-boned, essentially. from a texting driver and ruined my Ducati, pearl white Ducati Panigale, which was a little bit heartbreaking. But I did wear full gear, so the damage to me was very minor. Right now I just have minor back problems, in the sense of it's muscular, nothing broken, nothing permanent that can't be fixed through things like physio or whatnot. But yeah, jackets, gloves, you can get boots. I haven't got my boots on because it's pretty warm and I'm not really planning on going for a very, very long ride, let alone ride through the hills where you're going fast and you're more likely to need it if you do come off. But around the city and whatnot around here, you kind of don't really need to worry about boots too much, as long as you're wearing some comfy shoes that you can flat foot your bike with and whatnot. It'll do perfectly fine. Definitely jeans. Don't be one of those people that wear short shorts, boardies, that kind of stuff, because yeah, you're generally asking for trouble at that point. And don't wear any flip-flops or thongs. You might think it's cool and cooling, but you just look like an absolute freaking weapon. So you have your jacket, you have your gloves, you have your boots. You can get riding pants, but at that point, if you're going to get riding pants and a jacket, you may as well just get a full race suit. Now the other alternative, well, not alternative, but the other thing you can get is something like this. It's the OG10 motorcycle bag. Now this is an old girl. I've had her since I started riding about over a decade ago. Yeah, I would say about a decade. Now this bag has served me well, as you can see. She's been through some battering and just wear and tear over the year, but it's done its job. Now this is a hard shell backpack, so it's really good, especially if you are on, for example, a race bike. It just helps with the streamline of airflow over the top of your helmet and over your back and whatnot, and you know, less drag and all that jazz. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Hard shell, you got your sleeves, you got a ton of space to put your water bottles, and technically you can put your shoes here, especially if you go training at the gym, 1, 2, stuff in between, that kind of stuff. Can fit a small laptop, all that kind of jazz. And bonus, she only opens up from the inside, so you don't need to worry about people rummaging through your backpack, especially if you're standing in line and whatnot. Alrighty, and finally, for the last piece of gear that you'll need for your motorcycle is obviously what I have on my head right now. What you can't see is a motorcycle helmet. So definitely be one of those people that wears a motorcycle helmet if you're not going to wear any of the other gear, because I'm pretty sure most countries and states it's mandatory. Hell, I think actually no, some countries don't actually, you don't need one, but it's optional. But definitely wear a helmet. Now this looks a lot, but most learner bikes won't really have any, well, majority of this. It'll have this, it'll have that, it'll have that, and it'll have this. And obviously your hazard lights and just that button there. But stuff like that, obviously you'll have your horn, stuff like that, it won't be on your bike. It's only on here because they do a whole bunch of different things. Now it's pretty simple. Big red kill switch. So if you're, well, I'll start her up. Now that's the kill switch. That is in case of emergencies, or, well, you can use it. It doesn't really affect the bike too negatively if you were to just slap it. But generally, if you're in an accident and you're not out of it, or lost conscious, you're still functioning and actually able to get to it, definitely kill your bike. So the last thing you want is oils and fuel leaking out of your bike onto the road or wherever you are if you were to have an accident. But pretty straightforward. Kill switch goes up and down. Up pretty much allows you to gain access to the actual start button, and down, yeah, kills it. So that's the primary thing on. Usually that's on the right hand side of all bikes, because that's usually where the throttle is. And yeah, that's your throttle. That's what accelerates the bike. That's what gets you going, gets you moving essentially. So yep, start, kill switch, throttle, front brakes. Front brakes are, how would you say, the more powerful brakes on a motorcycle, because as you can see, not all bikes but most bikes tend to have big rotors and big brake calipers on the front. Mine, I got two big, semi-big rotors, two big calipers, Brembo calipers. Now your majority of your stopping power is in your front wheel, hands down. And it's also because of that, if you're going on a starter bike, you're less likely to have the driver aids and safety for pretty much doing a stoppie on your bike. So raising the back end if you were to jam your front brakes. And obviously if you don't have ABS and all the safety stuff, if you jam your front brakes, you're more likely to just tip the rear end up and you'll go over the handlebars and the bike will follow and smack you in the back of the head. So front brakes, very powerful. Use very, very cautiously, very, very sparingly. But that's the front right hand side of the bike. Then you come down to the rear brakes. That's that little lever there. Now rear brakes, obviously, rear caliper, they're your weaker brakes. They're the brakes you're supposed to use primarily when you're in traffic. You're slowing down, you use your rear brakes to slow down, and you use your front brakes to stop. You never jam your front brakes. Like I said, you'll go ass up. Rear brakes, you can literally, hell, you can even have your foot on there and it, obviously you'll have the rear brake lights on, but they're a lot weaker, obviously, because you have power being driven to the back wheel to move you forward, and you're braking, so those two forces are opposing each other, and it'll slow it down. Or if you want to ease off the throttle completely, brake. You do majority of your rear braking, but don't jam it, because like I said, if you don't have ride aids on your bike, like ABS, traction control, you're going to lock up your rear wheel, and that's the last thing you want, because you'll end up fishtailing and either high siding or low siding your bike, depending on where you're riding, really. So make sure you don't ever, general rule of thumb, don't jam any of your brakes. Apply a lot of pressure, but don't jam it or stomp the brakes, because it'll end badly for you. Now coming around to this side of the bike, that is your gear lever. Well, your gear selector essentially. Now with the gearing, there's generally two types of gearing on a motorcycle. You have your standard shifting, which is what I have, and you also have your MotoGP shifting, which is pretty much the exact reverse of how standard shifting is. So standard shifting is gear 1 is down, gear 2 is up, and in between gear 1 and 2, in the middle, is neutral. And obviously most bikes tend to have 6 gears, so 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6 as you need it. GP shifting is the opposite. Instead of going down for 1, you're going up for 1, and the rest of the gears are down, but neutral is always in between gear 1 and gear 2. That, I'm pretty sure, is a universal thing, unless you're driving an electric bike, which then you don't have any gears, you just have straight power. Now something that this bike has that a lot more modern bikes have, but a lot older bikes do not, unless you aftermarket it and buy it for your bike, essentially, is this little thing right here. So that little rod there, that little thing on my bike is called an auto blipper. You can get auto blippers, you can get quick shifters. The main caveat between the two of them is quick shifters is usually you're going up through the gears. It's very rarely you get the ability to quick shift down through the gears. Auto blips, on the other hand, are very simplified. This is a very simplified way of explaining it. Auto blip allows you to go up and down, essentially like an automatic vehicle, without using the clutch. Now, in talking about the gears, the other thing is the clutch. So every time you need to go up a gear, down a gear, into neutral, you gotta clutch in. That click is gear 1, gear 2, gear 3, gear 4. But see how my hand has got the clutch in? Now the gear will not go, well, bike won't go up or down in gears if the clutch is not in. Now mine will, because of that auto blipper. Now, explain the brake, the throttle, the starter, the gear, the clutch. Obviously, I'll need to have the bike turned on for this, but every bike has to have two things. Well, three things really by law. Your horn, your indicator, left and right, middle to stop it, hazards, and that button there for your high and low beams, essentially. So usually you flick it out to keep your high beams on permanently, and if you flick, just push it in towards you, you usually just do a little flash. Now that's the general basics of how to operate a motorcycle. Now when everything starts to move, all you need to do is simply let out the clutch a little bit until you feel that friction point, like just then it started to move. I'm letting it out again, it's starting to move. So each bike will be different, also depending on whether you have aftermarket clutch levers or brake levers. Friction points will be at different points in the bike. Like for me, my friction point is very close, just with the way this lever is designed. So clutch out, as you can hear the bike was about to stall, you give it a little gas. You don't have to rip the handlebar, accelerator I mean, you just need to give it a little bit of oomph until you hear it start to go. Then you just let your clutch out gently and start applying more acceleration. Now you maintain your speed. And the speed is maintained simply by how much gas you want to give it, like that. Now, since mine has an auto blipper, I will try not to use it, just for demonstration purposes, but to move up in the gear, clutch in, off the accelerator, up, back on the accelerator, clutch out. So when you're clutching out and laying off the accelerator and laying it back in, essentially to get the bike to continue moving at this speed, the letting out of the clutch and applying acceleration, deceleration and then acceleration is almost simultaneously. So think of it as you have to do both at the same time. So acceleration, clutching out, gear up, keep accelerating. And I want to go up a gear again, clutch in, so I'll clutch in, gear up, lay off the accelerator and lay into the accelerator, like that. Eventually you'll get to the point where you're quick, but simply off the accelerator, clutch up, accelerate. Going down, gears, simple, off the accelerator, clutch in, click down with your foot to go down a gear. As you can see, gear 3. Now, that's pretty much the basics. Obviously, always use your indicators, because car people are very, again, complacent. They'll just do dodgy stuff. Now going down a gear, off the accelerator, clutch in, click down, keep going. Off, back on the accelerator. Very simple. Now, with a little bit of time and experience, with each bike it'll tend to vary. You'll generally gauge, or learn to gauge, where your bike likes to sit. For example, low speeds, my bike likes to sit between second gear and sometimes third gear depending on speed. Like right now, I can hear it's not droning too much, but it could use with the gear up. So in, up, off the accelerator, on the accelerator. Now it's content. Low revs. I'm not trying to go fast, go anywhere, or be anywhere fast. Just simple. In, out, slow. Your revs can be down. You're not trying to move fast. Chill. Now that I'm in third gear, I have pretty much up to about, I would say about 100 kilometers an hour. If I were to just rip the throttle, especially in third gear. So I have the power if I need to, if I want to, but the thing is, with the smaller CC bikes, you will not have that luxury. You're more likely to sit in third and fourth gear to essentially be in your power band. Now, power band is the optimum range, well, and gear ratio, essentially, for your bike to produce the maximum amount of power at that rev range. So for my bike, being that it's a bigger CC bike, it doesn't really, how would you say, need to be higher up in the gears to be in this power band. My bike's power band is literally second gear, high second gear, low third gear, and it can boogie, essentially. Now, don't do what I'm doing, riding one-handed. That comes only after when you become more confident and experienced. Now, I only ride with one hand when I'm going in a straight line, but otherwise when I'm turning, all that jazz, I make sure both hands are actually guiding the vehicle. So, now, for example, this is a very, very sharp turn. Gear down. Lean into the turn. Accelerate out of the turn. Simple. Now there's there's a couple of things you can do, like learning where the apex of the road is when you're doing your turns, but that's more of an advanced thing, but it's very simple. Whenever you're going at a decent speed, do not try and turn your handlebar, because you'll wobble like that, like this. When you're needing to turn, simple. Just lean your butt cheek off the direction of the side you want to turn, and usually the bike will kind of sway into the direction you want to go in. So always pay attention to that. Now, you may see people swaying left to right like this. That isn't them being a bunch of idiots or trying to look cool. Most often than not, they're just trying to warm their tires, because the warmer your tires are, the more not more likely, most definitely, you're going to stick to the road better. The compound's warm, the road's warm, it's going to be sticky, and you're more likely to stick to the road and actually have better traction, so you have better acceleration, you have just better control of your vehicle. But always be confident in what you're doing. Don't second guess yourself, because if you second guess yourself, you're likely to cause an accident, because you confuse the other road users and then there's a collision. But I think that pretty much wraps up most of it. And I'm just going to enjoy my coastal ride home before it gets too warm and unbearable. Alrighty.